Hello and welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I am Big Italy 42. Unfortunately, my partner in crime for this podcast, Josh Shepardson at BChad50, he's on vacation today, so you just got to listen to me talk about these games, but give you the best I can here. Starting off at the top, I guess I should preface this by saying this is this podcast where I'm talking fades and stacks, which teams I'm stacking, which teams I like to stack, and I don't think anyone else will be. Which ones you just avoid because there's too good of a pitcher on the mound. So we'll start off Atlanta at Philadelphia. Matt Whistler against Aaron Nola. And this one's listed as 7.5 run total. Philly, a minus 125 favorite. I'm not in love with either one of these teams, honestly, tonight. Philly had a great game last night, but this is a very inconsistent offense. Atlanta, just not a team that's very stackable because you've got Freddie Freeman and really no other high upside hitters. Both teams listed as a 3.5 run total in Vegas. So for me, you could take a shot and, mini stack the Phillies, get like a Cesar Hernandez, Odubel Herrera, Ryan Howard, and then Dom Brown type of stack. I think one like that might be a viable stack. It paid off pretty well last night if you have one of those. But outside of that, I'm not even looking at a full stack on DraftKings because I'm just not a big fan of either of these offenses. This one's pretty much an avoid for me outside of mini stacks. Detroit at Baltimore, Anibal Sanchez against Kevin Gausman. This one's going to be really interesting because you look at these two pitchers. Sanchez has actually pitched pretty well, aside from some home run struggles this season. But Vegas thinks differently. They have this one as an 8.5 run total. Baltimore, minus 145 favorite. And this is interesting. Obviously, Miguel Cabrera on the DL. Yoenis Cespedes has been dealt, so this is not the Detroit Tigers offense we saw a few weeks ago even. And, for that reason and the struggles that Sanchez has had, the nice ballpark factors at Camden Yards today, the Baltimore Orioles actually tied for the highest team total in the night at 4.5. Tigers only 3.5. So for me, you can certainly target these big bats for Detroit if you wanted to stack them against Gausman. Gausman's been inconsistent this season. You get guys like Victor Martinez, J.D. Martinez. Maybe you hook in some Nick Castellanos, James McCann. But now, Ian Kinsler. But this is an offense that I don't have a whole lot of faith in now. They already don't manufacture a lot of runs. They're a long ball type of team to score. So for me, Baltimore's the side you want on this one. Take your pick. I love Chris Davis. Big fan of Jimmy Paredes, especially at his cheap price tag at second base on FanDuel. Adam Jones still way too cheap on FanDuel as well. Stack all those guys in there. You can get Matt Wieters in there, Manny Machado, all these guys. Machado may be the best play at third base tonight. It's pretty close, but stack Baltimore, one of my favorite stacks tonight. Vegas agrees, and I'm not one to disagree with Vegas. When they got someone listed as a 4.5 run total, I take note, and those are the type of guys the type of teams that I want to be looking at here. Next game we have Seattle at Minnesota. Michael Montgomery against Kyle Gibson. And as you're looking at the team totals on this one, not a whole lot to see, you would think, but actually this one of the highest totals in the night. Mariners with a 4-run team total, Minnesota 4.5. And this one is an 8.5 run total. Gibson a small favorite, minus 129. Wind blowing out ever so slightly. There's a small chance of storms late, so keep your eye on that. But these are two offenses that have actually hit pretty well over the past few weeks. And for me, I don't mind stacking either side. And you can get real creative with the Seattle side. Robinson Cano may or may not be back tonight. If he's not, it just gives you, an extra spot where you can find some value instead. Obviously, Nelson Cruz, Mark Trumbo, your big hitters like that are guys you want to look at. Kyle Seager's been struggling, but you can certainly get him in there. And then Jesus Montero, I think, can be a key part of that stack. Had a big game last night. I'm really a big fan of his. And then on the Minnesota side, you know the drill against lefties. You get Brian Dozier, pick between Sano and Plouffe. I like to run two lineups, one with Plouffe, one with Sano. You get your Torrey Hunter, Aaron Hicks. Eddie Rosario's a lefty. I'm not a big fan of that lefty-lefty matchup, but big fan of this in general. I'll be stacking both sides of this game. Maybe a viable way to go is just stack both sides of this one if you see what pitcher you can fit in there. Shouldn't be too expensive of a stack, especially on FanDuel. So I'm looking at both sides of this one. Chicago Cubs at the Milwaukee Brewers. Kyle Hendricks, Matt Garza. Matt Garza was once a good pitcher. Those days are long gone. 8-run total here. Hendricks, a small favorite, minus 119. You obviously like the park factors here. for these two teams in Miller Park. And at the same time, though, these are also two offenses that have been struggling. Now we got the Brewers missing Carlos Gomez, who's been traded. They're missing Gerardo Parra, who's been traded. Only a 3.5 run total for them, 4 for the Cubs. So for me, if I'm stacking one side of this one, it's going to be the Cubbies. I'm going to go with guys like Anthony Rizzo, who's absolutely on fire right now. Home runs in each of his last 3 games. He's in a good spot. Outfielder options, you got Dexter Fowler, Chris Coughlin, Jorge Soler, all those guys in play. Starlin Castro is a guy that I tend to leave out of my stacks just because he just hasn't been very good. Chris Bryant hasn't been very good recently either, but we know he has upside. So for me, I'm stacking the Cubbies. Milwaukee could be a cheap stack if you're not a believer in Kyle Hendricks. I think they're a nice contrarian stack. Probably more of a mini stack for me. I mean, I do like guys like Ryan Braun and Jonathan Lucroy. As far as top to bottom, though, not a huge fan. So for me, not a route I'll be taking very often. Next up, Arizona at Houston. This one's going to be an interesting one. We have the biggest favorite on the night, Dallas Keuchel, minus 200 favorite here. And as we know, he's a very good pitcher. Got hit pretty hard the first 2 innings last time against the Royals. Settled down, ended up, managing his way through 6.5 innings, or 6 2/3, you can call it that. 7.5 run total, though. He's the big favorite I mentioned. It's going to be hot, but obviously indoors at Minute Maid Park. This one, you don't see a whole lot of big team totals here with good pitchers, especially ground ball pitchers like Dallas Keuchel. But 4.5 run total for the Astros. Only 3 for Arizona. Arizona, the lowest team total in the night. I'm not stacking Arizona. I love Dallas Keuchel. He's one of my favorite pitchers to play in DFS. Always tends to go overlooked. But what I am going to be doing is stacking Houston in any way that I can. Carlos Correa, the top option for me. I love Preston Tucker. Colby Rasmus, a nice cheap source of power as well. Jose Altuve, despite being against a righty, he's fine. And Jeremy Hellickson has some reverse splits. Luis Valbuena, been batting low in the order, but obviously he's a guy with some big-time upside as far as home runs go. And then, speaking of Carlos Gomez, he now plays for the Houston Astros. 0 for 5 last night, but certainly a guy that you can afford, especially on FanDuel. He's only 3,700. Going to be fun making some stacks for this team tonight. Evan Gattis, I mean, this is one of the better offenses in all of baseball already, and now they're adding some more bats. Really exciting times for the Houston Astros, and I'm going to love stacking them tonight. San Diego Padres at the Miami Marlins. Odrisamer Despain versus Jose Urena. If you're looking for two really cheap pitchers, look no further than this game. This one, obviously, a pretty big ballpark in Miami, so you're not expecting big things. Neither is Vegas. 3.5 run total for each team, and nothing substantial to see here with the totals either. 7.5 run total, pretty much a pick-em between these two guys. I don't really like either pitcher, but I also don't really like either offense. Neither offense very good. So for me, this game is in a void completely. I'm not playing either pitcher. I'm not stacking because there just aren't enough consistent options. If you had to go and make a stack, go like a Derek Norris, Justin Upton, Matt Kemp type of stack for San Diego. But I still don't feel that good about it. Just not very good offenses right now. A team I will be stacking, and you should be stacking as well, the New York Yankees facing off against the Chicago White Sox and John Danks tonight. I actually don't mind either side of this one. Yankees 4.5 run team total. I'm surprised their team total is not about 9 right now, the way they've been hitting the ball. But this team is putting up runs at bunches. White Sox have a 4-run team total as well. This one's going to see some fireworks. Biggest total of the night at 9. Essentially a pick-em between Brian Mitchell and John Danks. We know the story with John Danks. The guy has talent. He's not a consistent pitcher. And when he's bad, he is very bad. Whatever pieces you want of the Yankees starting for me with Mark Teixeira, you got to take your pick between Ellsbury and Gardner. If you can only get one, I'll probably just go the cheaper one. I think they're both similar plays tonight. Other guys, Stephen Drew at the bottom of your order is a lefty-lefty. You don't like that, but I guess he has some power. I mean, you can do a lot of things. Alex Rodriguez is the guy you're going to need to get in there. Chase Headley, you can't play with Rodriguez, but nice swerve off of him maybe. Didi Gregorius is in a lefty-lefty matchup, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well recently. I'm a fan of all of these Yankees tonight, so I will have multiple Yankees stacks however I can get them. And on the White Sox side, it's tough because you can't stack LaRoche with Abreu. I'm not playing LaRoche anyway, even in a stack. He's been horrible recently. Not only is he not producing, but he's just striking out a ton. For me, it's going to be a Saladino, Eaton, Melky Cabrera, Jose Abreu type of stack. Maybe throw Alexi Ramirez in there. So either side of this one certainly stackable. I'm a big fan. And this brings us to our most interesting potential stack of the night. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Garrett Cole against Raisel Iglesias. And this is where, depends on how much you believe in narratives for this one. 8-run total. Garrett Cole, minus 150 favorite over Raisel Iglesias. And you look at the team totals here, it doesn't seem like a good spot for anyone, but the Reds have a 3.5-run team total and the Pirates only have a 4. Reason for that being is that the Reds have crushed Garrett Cole. This Reds team hitting 337 off him, 27 for 80, 4 home runs, 8 extra base hits. 18 strikeouts to 8 walks. I'm stacking the Reds. I stacked the Reds against Garrett Cole last time. I stacked them the first time. First time was really just as a contrarian stack, certainly not tooting my own horn there, and it wasn't a monstrous stack. I mean, he did well, but it wasn't a GPP winning type of stack. But these guys have some solid BVP against him. You've got guys like Marlon Byrd, 6 for 13, 3 extra base hits, 2 homers. Todd Frazier, 5 for 14, 4 extra base hits, 2 homers. Brandon Phillips, 5 for 11. A lot of these guys see Garrett Cole pretty well, and that's not to say that he's not a great pitching option tonight and on most slates, but I'm still going to stack the Cincinnati Reds tonight. I'm going to get myself some Joey Votto, some Phillips, all those guys I just mentioned. Probably won't be adding in a catcher. Shortstop, I really don't mind playing Eugenio Suarez. He's men's salary on FanDuel. Hasn't been hitting great, but if I'm stacking this game, I'm going to go all out and stack the whole thing. And I'm a big fan of it tonight. On the Pittsburgh side, I love stacking this side as well. Andrew McCutchen, Starling Marte, Neil Walker all lead the way for me there. Pedro Alvarez as well. I mean, you got Raisel Iglesias here, who has been abysmal against lefties. Only 19 and a third innings pitched, so a small sample size, but 387 WOBA allowed. Whatever lefties you can get. There are not many. It's pretty much Alvarez and Neil Walker, but I like stacking both sides of this game. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Reds get mowed down, but I'll take a couple shots in some tournaments with them. Washington at the New York Mets, Jacob deGrom against Joe Ross. And now this one's going to be incredibly interesting. 6.5-run total. deGrom a minus 145 favorite. Wind blowing out up to 12 miles an hour from what I'm seeing early here. So, that doesn't really change anything for me. Jacob deGrom's still my favorite pitcher on the night. 3.5-run total for the Mets, 3 for the Nationals. Nationals have just been lost to the plate recently. I love Jacob deGrom. He's the guy I'll be playing in cash games. Certainly not stacking the Nationals. At that point, you're just trying to be contrarian, hoping you get lucky. I don't imagine it's going to end well there. Joe Ross, a guy, had a big start, or a couple big starts early in the season. Hasn't done much in his last few, including one actually against this Mets team, 8.33 points. I think he's an interesting tournament option because the Mets do have a low total, but if you're playing him on FanDuel, though, still not very likely to get the win. You don't expect he's going to get much run support. Really not a route I'll be traveling very often tonight. Colorado at St. Louis. Lance Lynn against Jorge De La Rosa. Lance Lynn has been pitching well recently, and this Colorado team has been horrible. Corey Dickerson back on the DL now. Obviously, Troy Tulowitzki dealt out of town for Jose Reyes. So, I mean, you do have a 7-run total here, and it's Lance Lynn, started a minus 170 favorite up to 190. I'm not playing the Colorado Rockies bats here. They're just not a good offensive team away from home. And on the St. Louis side, I am targeting them. Johnny Peralta may just be the best shortstop play tonight. He's certainly going to be a chalk cash game play. Obviously, Jorge De La Rosa, a lefty, so you want guys like Randall Grichuk. You want Johnny Peralta, like I mentioned. Brandon Moss, if he's in the lineup, has actually hit lefties better than righties this year. Kind of strange, but I'll take it. Matt Carpenter, not too bad in lefty-lefty matchup, so I don't know about a full-blown stack, but a mini stack for the Cardinals here. Yes, please. Jorge De La Rosa has not been very good recently, struggling big time with the long ball this year, and negative points last time out against the Cubs. This is definitely a guy that's beatable, and somehow pitches much better at Coors Field throughout his career than he does on the road. San Francisco at Texas, Cole Hamels, Chris Heston, 2 pitchers that have been solid targets in DFS. In fact, Cole Hamels coming off one of the best performances by any pitcher. No hitter against the Cubs, 13 Ks last time out. But Chris Heston struggles with lefties. Cole Hamels facing off against the Giants team. It's much better against righties, but we saw Madison Bumgarner here last night. Struggled in this thin air, the heat. I'm not targeting either pitcher. I think that Heston on DK, where he's only $5,000, is an interesting tournament option. But for me, I'm still getting bats, especially the lefties from Texas. Josh Hamilton, Prince Fielder, Shin-Soo Choo. I think that's a very viable stack. I don't mind stacking San Francisco. They had the highest team total last night. Big time disappointment, but you got some guys that hit lefties very well. Buster Posey, in particular. Brandon Crawford is a lefty, but he thrives in lefty-lefty matchups. Hunter Pence. I don't mind targeting either side of this game, and I'll probably tread lightly with San Francisco, but you like to see some nerves sometimes, guys coming over from one team to another, especially switching leagues. Either way, I don't like targeting pitchers. I've been saying it all week in this matchup, in this type of heat, so I don't mind stacking either side. Final game of the night, Cody Anderson versus Aaron Brooks. And no, this is not the basketball player, Aaron Brooks. Cody Anderson had a couple good starts to start the season, but his flaws have been exposed in 2 straight bad performances. He has less than 1 combined fantasy point on FanDuel over his last 2 starts. And facing off against an Oakland team, though, that has really been struggling. So the thought process here is that something's got to give. 7.5 run total. Anderson, a very, very marginal favorite. But for me, I don't trust this Athletics offense at all. Also don't trust Cody Anderson. So for me, I'll probably go with some cheap mini stacks on both sides of this one. The A's in particular you can get for very cheap. But I really don't have a lot of confidence here. I think I'd prefer to go on the Indian side, but even they aren't that cheap because you're not going to make an Indian stack without Jason Kipnis, especially on DK. That's going to be a pricey one. So for me, Oakland, because they're cheap, I'll probably go half Oakland stack, half an expensive stack like the Yankees. Dead man, hopefully I can get a decent pitcher with him as well. And that's about it for that one. So that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.